Before we start this episode, I'd like to thank my sponsor, Lori Medic of 5 Star Painting of Tulsa. Lori and her husband Trevor are incredible to work with. They are my go-to painting company because they are engaged in every step of the process. From the paint consultation to the follow-up, they ensure your project is beautifully completed in a timely manner, and they are meticulous with every detail so you don't have to be. They are also friendly, knowledgeable, and combine top quality work with high quality products. Other attributes that set 5 Star Painting apart include being family owned, insured, and members of the Tulsa Home Builders Association. So when you have a painting project here in the Tulsa area, 5 Star Painting is the one to call, and they provide free estimates. Connect with them online at 5starpainting.com/Tulsa or give them a call at 918-500-5788. It's amazing how a fresh coat of paint can transform a space. Connect with them today and you will be so glad you did. And now on to the episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. My name is Nancy Moore, and I am the host of this weekly podcast that provides career and creative inspiration to help you build a passionate and purpose-filled life. You'll hear from guests that will help you tap into your creative potential, pursue a career with passion, and build on your biggest and best resource, yourself. I'm excited to have you join this conversation. I'm so happy you're here. Let's get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. I'm Nancy Moore, the host of this podcast, and today is such a fun episode for me. I am joined by Dr. Neely Shenloogian, actually a friend of mine as well, who is the founder of Green Country Animal Chiropractic, and she made a transition going from healing people to healing animals. And so today we're going to talk about what it looks like to pivot in your job, to trust your calling and build a career that truly aligns with who you are. So if you have ever felt pulled in a new direction, this conversation is going to be for you. So I am thrilled to have you today on the podcast. Welcome, Neely. You have somebody with you as well. Do you want to introduce?
Yes, I would love to. This is my dog, Lucky. We're not sure what kind of doodle. He's a doodle. He was a stray that we took in, and he's been a wonderful family dog.
Before we started recording, you were even talking about a barn cat. So I have a feeling you have a lot of different animals that you have that you care for, in addition to what you're doing in your business. So anyway, let's just get into it because it's so interesting to me that you and Jason, your husband, and I've got to shout out to Jason because he is the best chiropractor. When you need a chiropractor, it's Jason Shenloogian. But you all were in a practice together and then decided that you wanted to work with animals. And so I'm going to take you back, though, to just kind of sharing with people how you got interested in becoming a chiropractor.
Became interested in becoming a chiropractor back in college. Jason, my husband, actually introduced me to the idea. I had always been interested in the medical field or healing or health, and I loved the preventive side. And I did not grow up around chiropractic. I was never treated by a chiropractor until I met him. And he ended up talking to me about it. It seemed like a great fit. And so he was in school. I joined him. Okay. And so then we opened our practice together in 2008.
Like progressive in health, progressive in healing. You like working with people, and helping them be the best they can be. And so when I say people, you had kind of a change of direction or, a pivot in what you were looking at. And so I think it's interesting because you both, built this successful business, and then you've actually now taken a different approach and a different direction with animals. So how did that kind of come about?
I became aware of the option to certify to work for animals towards the end of chiropractic school. And the chiropractic school that I attended in Kansas City did not offer that certification course, but I always hoped that that would be a part of my world. I just didn't know at that time really how to make it part of my world because it's a pretty extensive certification and additional licensing and a board exam. So I've loved animals my entire life. All I wanted to do when I was a little girl was be around animals. Every dog I want to pet. You know, I grew up riding horses, which I'm so thankful I was able to do that. And so I just thought that would be something I would love to do at some point. And in 2000 and so I guess rewinding the clock a little bit to whenever we started our family, I worked in the human practice from 2008 until about 2000, the end of 2014. And then we started our family. I had my firstborn in 2015 and stayed home with the kids. But we had a girl about 19 months later, and I stayed home with the kids. And Jason encouraged me, why don't you start that certification work? And so I started it then.
Okay.
And
Wow.
went to school
Okay.
in
That's
Dallas
really
for
cool.
that.
And it's interesting because you already had so much schooling,
Thank
so
you.
much education, and then to further it. And that probably, though, gives you the confidence to work with a variety of animals. And so, speaking of a variety of animals, you then, in starting this business, have been able to see a whole variety. So, how different is that? Because going from people, and I
Yes.
know you all saw, a variety of people, but animals are so different. So talk to me about starting out and even, building your confidence as you started kind of working in it.
Well, that was a hurdle for sure because each animal has its own unique anatomy. And I really want to do right by all the animals I work on. And so when we studied in school, we studied mostly dogs, cats, and horses. And so when I got my first call, for example, for a show hog, I made it a priority to study in depth anatomy of how theirs is unique and how their spine uh, and extremities communicate with one another because it's very different than how a horse is put together and moves and or how a dog or a cat moves. So I just try and study up. I love being a student, and so I'm in a sense a student for life in this career. So I'm always trying to be better.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And study
So has
more,
there been a time where um I'm just thinking about how the animals can't talk to you. They cannot tell you what is wrong. And sometimes the owners might know something that's happened so they can kind of direct you. But how do you work on animals when they can't really tell you what is wrong with them?
Well, so I really had to focus on a thorough physical exam prior to treating them. And I also have come up with a series of questions for very different each is different for each species. It's a different set of questions for each species. But you as time has gone on, I figured out okay, an Australian Shepherd is likely to have an injury related to activities along these lines, or a horse that shows in the jumper ring is more likely to have injuries related to this. So then I'll ask the owner a series of questions, and then I just examine the animal nose to tail and back to nose. I stretch each extremity and I feel all the way down the spine. I'll talk to the owner about eating habits, play habits, anything that's changed. So it's really just, it does make it more difficult that they can't talk, but it's been a fun process of figuring out, okay, what are my indicators and what are my consistent reads on
And you've
on these
developed your own
animals.
system. Yeah, it sounds like that works. Okay.
I tried. And, I also have a good community of colleagues that I will reach out to and ask questions. And I really appreciate the continuing education requirements for animals, for working with animals, because it puts you in community with other animal chiropractors, and we just help sharpen each other because we all really do need each other. I say that all the time, but we do. And I say that in the horse world or in the canine world. I couldn't do my job as well without an owner's keen eye on
Okay,
the
so
animals.
let me talk to you about pivoting into this, because Jason, I know Jason and he's amazing, but you have to have support from your people, your husband, your whoever, in order to pursue this, because it is an investment in classes, in education, in whatever. And so after you decide to do that, I want to talk to you about making that decision, but then also how that has enhanced your quality of life.
It's been interesting growing this business because in the beginning, I would get a call to go see a dog in home that was 50 minutes away from where I live. And that is not a sustainable business model, to be driving 2 hours to and from for one animal. And I also really believe in access to care. And so I try to keep my fee schedule feasible for people to access care. And so in the beginning, my point in all of this is, in the beginning, I said yes to a lot of things that don't make a lot of sense business wise, I guess financially, but it moves you forward in not only experience, but referrals and people, sharing your name with other people. I have grown in my practice to where I see all my dogs in the office, at our human office during Jason's lunch hour. So I try not to bring the chaos during his regular patient hours. But getting to that point took a lot of time and some sweat equity, where it didn't really make sense the way that I was doing things. But he was patient with the process too, and I really appreciated that, because it just takes time to grow, and in both in the human practice and in the animal chiropractic world, we have not paid for advertisement. We believe strongly in the referral of one person to another, and we think that people trust their friends, and that is how we have chosen to grow our businesses. So it's slow, but it also secures really great patient retention, because people end up seeking your services that actually need them, and it's not based on being at a trade show or something like that. So finally, after a few years of growing in a way that took a lot of sacrifice and didn't have a lot of I guess it didn't feel like fast growth, but I was able to move dogs into the office. I do farm calls for horses in the morning, and then I work in my office starting at his lunch break around 12:30. And then I get to pick up my kids every day after school and run them around to their activities. So that to me was a priority, because my heart for being a mother is that's what I wanted to do with my kids. And so I'm thankful to be able to do that. So I hope that answered your question. I know that
you have your own sense of purpose, and that does involve your family, and your husband and kids for sure, but also in what you're doing with your life in your day to day, because, you're spending it, I feel like, and think doing things that you want to do. As far as, with your business, growing your business. And you guys are easy to refer, I will say, because I even did a shout out to Jason at the beginning, of the episode. And you guys are just amazing people in general. So, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the animals that you've seen, because people, you mentioned a show hog. You have dogs, you have horses. So is there anything that's been interesting, out of the ordinary, unique, that has maybe, one that sticks out that you'd like to share about?
Well, it is never a dull, there's really never a dull moment when you're working with animals. But working with farm animals has been, I guess it's a dance for sure. And so I think, the first couple calls that I got for show hogs, I reached out to friends who had been in that world and they helped guide me. Something that I didn't know whenever I started working on show hogs is that when you scratch them on the belly, just give them really good belly rubs, they'll usually just lay down on their side. And then you can ask them to get up and they'll lay down on their other side. And they're just really sweet to work on. They're pretty fun. So that was something that, I did not grow up doing ag. I think it would have been really fun to do, say, 4-H or FFA. But, that's a trick of the trade that all those students have. But I didn't know that. So that was really fun to see. There's just kind of like a scratch button on the side of a pig that helps them lay down, completely happy to be treated. I had a interesting call for a goat that had just delivered a little baby, and she was down in her back end. She could not stand. New mothers in the animal world are very protective over their babies. So when she saw me, she wasn't very excited to have a new person there that, the animals get used to their person, but she knew I wasn't there to feed her. They kind of have the sense of what's this person up to. And so she wasn't very excited to see me. And then the owner removed the baby from the situation because there was a lot of quick movement. She was nervous and trying to move around, but couldn't use her back in. And so I eventually, with the help of the owner, was able to make the adjustment. We worked on her hips, helped her stand up, stretched her legs out. And she kind of turned her head and looked at me and then walked off. So she was still not a satisfied customer at the end of all of that, but she was moving. It took a couple of adjustments. Adjustments aren't, a quick fix often like that. It took a couple of adjustments to get her stable on her hind end, but we were able to get her standing and moving forward. And then I went back for a few more, but she was a little more warm the next couple times, but that first time she wanted nothing to do with me.
I think animals sense when they have somebody who wants to be there. Does that make sense? Like likes animals, they kind of have a sense about that because you probably are not trying to rush in, kind of how to approach an animal, or you've probably learned how to approach a variety of animals. Do they sense that and kind of start trusting you?
Yes, they do. Sometimes, and that the spectrum of trust varies greatly, especially based on temperament. Some horses are just, for example, are more high strung. And so they're trusting the process looks like a very amped up horse in other people's estimation. So it's definitely a spectrum, but something that has been very important for me to learn to bring into check is what energy I bring into each situation. It has really been important for me to take, to breathe, bring a calm energy. I really do believe in choosing and setting expectations and intentions, and then walking in that. And so it's been an important practice for me to really center myself and focus on the animal that I'm working on, because they need that, and it helps me do my job better. Some animals won't come down to the point where for example, I have to muzzle dogs on a fairly regular occasion. And it's not because all dogs are vicious or anything along those lines. It's because when a dog is seemingly provoked or overstimulated, sometimes their intention is to nip. And if I don't know that dog very well, it's a safety to have to go ahead and put a muzzle on them. And then I tell them they're the best dog and give them lots of scratches, but they can't bite me, just because sometimes those bites come out of the blue and it's very unexpected. And so it's just a safety precaution if there's really any question. And you know, there's not a particular breed that I have to go after more than that. It's just really more of a safety practice. But uh, it's very important to bring calm and quiet energy into the space of the animal that you're
I'm
working
glad because I've been looking at more into energy lately, and it's interesting the
in.
type of energy that you bring into something, you know. And so I understand the energy that you're talking about that maybe brings a calmness, and and then you can stay focused too. And so yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I want to ask you about any myths, because it's interesting. I remember years ago when you said that you were going to do this, we had a conversation. I thought, well, I've never heard of this. I've never heard of a chiropractor for animals. And so I'd like you to kind of talk about that a little bit.
So, when people find out about animal chiropractic, typically it's either through referral of a friend or a veterinarian will recommend that they receive chiropractic care for their animal. Or often it's on something like Instagram or TikTok where it comes into their algorithm because they're an animal lover or because they like a chiropractor or something along those lines. And so, that whole world of TikTok and chiropractors is a little bit removed from the world of chiropractic that my husband and I both, Jason and I both practice in. The one of the animal chiropractors that became very TikTok famous or Instagram famous was actually not even certified to work on animals, and he was in another country, so laws are different there. But he was doing very rough and theatrical adjustments on animals, and he was doing them in ways that also put him at great risk as well. And so that was an interesting hurdle to sort of be able to communicate. Okay, maybe he might have helped that animal, but that's really not a safe or effective way to treat. In my opinion, it's not how I choose to treat. And so I think that for the same reason, sometimes people are afraid to go to the chiropractor in the human world. I think that it made some people afraid to bring their animals because they were worried about how rough or theatrical those adjustments were going to be. But the way that Jason and I have chosen to practice in the human and in the animal world is to be gentle and effective. So, the adjustment takes place, and sometimes you do hear an audible release, sometimes you don't. And it's just, it depends on a lot of different factors. It's been an interesting, I don't want to say I want to combat, but maybe for lack of a better term, I would like to be an option for much more gentle chiropractic care for animals. So there's not, sometimes you won't even notice that an adjustment was happening, especially on, smaller dogs. I work on dogs that weigh under 5 pounds, and I will also work on horses. And of course, you have to calibrate your adjustment for each animal.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad that you kind of talked about that myth, because I do think for the show of TikTok, or, for the show of it, when people are watching, they've got to create some big something. And, they probably think there has to be a pop or a crack or a, whatever. And for me, that would scare me. And so, I think too many people so often will not research the person, and maybe they're watching for entertainment, but I'm glad that you're calling attention to, the person's background, their credentials, their qualifications or education, and that it's normally not done like that, or the way that you practice, isn't done like that. So, yeah.
right. I really try to practice within my scope, and it is very important to me to to communicate with owners about expectations. And I really believe that an animal should leave feeling better right away and continue to improve. So, you know, something that I loved about, well, that I still love about Jason's practice is in the human world, he will have a baby and somebody over 100 years old in his office the same day. And so the variety, and that's again like me working on a 5-pound dog and then 1,200-pound horse. It's just I really believe in doing this job in a manner that is safe yet effective.
Yeah, I love that. Well, this has kind of shed some light into what you do. And, I think it's very interesting. I will share that I don't think AI is going to take your job because you physically, have to be there, to assess, and you're physically touching the animal and that kind of thing. Are you able to at all do Zoom calls for people, or is it all in person what you're doing?
Had people send video before. I would happily do a Zoom call if they needed me to watch their animal move. I always tell them I'm here for the dialogue. Once I work on your animal, that doesn't mean we can't be talking. I would like updates. If you have questions, send me video. I need to review it. So I really appreciate using technology in my job. Jason bought me a pair of those Ray-Ban Meta glasses, and I've been using them more because owners are not always at their animals' appointments, especially in the equine world. And so I love sending clips of how the horse behaved and how they responded to their adjustment. So people love that. But yeah, I'm open for really whatever, but I do not see how AI would be able to take over my job. Yeah. So thankfully it is pretty physical. Yeah. So but I like to be active.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's interesting about the glasses. I didn't realize that I haven't looked into it, and so I don't quite know how they work, but it sounds like that you're able to utilize those well with the people that you're working with. So
they will snap a picture or take a video. You can tell them to do either.
Okay.
They also can actively translate another language. Okay. So you can have a conversation with somebody, which I downloaded Spanish because I feel like that's very helpful in our day and age. Yeah. My daughter's taking Spanish at school. She's in a Spanish immersion program, so maybe I just need her as my sidekick too to be a real-time translator.
Both my kids went to an Spanish immersion, and so they help me a lot too, even still, I feel like. So yeah.
I love that.
So in wrapping up, I'm curious on what you would maybe share with women, some words that you would share for those thinking about making a pivot in their lives. Yours was in that same realm as far as just going from humans or people to animals, but you did have to go through, education and it sounds like in a board exam and some different things. But if you would just kind of share some advice that might help women who are thinking about making some sort of pivot in their lives.
Well, from my personal experience, I feel like the most important advice I could share is that it was a part of my heart, and that made it a natural thing to step forward. It didn't make it to where it was free of fear. So that was something that I really had to work through. There were doubts because it's kind of uncharted. I didn't know an animal chiropractor personally when I was going through this. So it was a little uncharted, but I just kept moving forward because it was part of my heart, and I was really excited by the work. And it didn't happen overnight, but I feel like committing to the process and having a little bit of endurance and just working through the fears, it really paid off in dividends in the end. And I love my job, and I am so thankful to get to do something that is a part of my heart. I love being around animals. I love working with people who love their animals. And so just taking small steps forward would be something that was important for me. And so if I could impart that on anyone else, is just keep putting one foot in front of the other, know your end game, and be patient with the process, and patient with yourself.
Yes.
So
yeah, good. Very wise words. So tell people how they can find you. Remind us how we can find you.
So my business is called Green Country Animal Chiropractic, and I have a website that's greencountryanimalchiropractic.com. I also am on Instagram, Green Country Animal Chiropractic, and also Facebook, same name. So, and then if you just Google my practice name, it has contact information there. And my office is in Tulsa on Harvard, kind of in Midtown area. So you can find me there too, over Jason's lunch break.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. You guys still work together so well. So anyway, well, thank you so much for this conversation and enlightening us on what you do and how you were able to, kind of redirect, and how beneficial it's been for you. This has been a great conversation. So thank you, Neely.
Thank you for having me. I've loved sharing about my line of work with you.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I appreciate you being here. And don't forget to connect with me on social media. Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn are at Sharing Passion and Purpose, and Twitter is at Passion Sharing. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.